Behind these walls is the answer to a mystery that has been shaking the very foundations of the internet. A 28-year-old website with countless secrets locked behind a simple username and passcode. A front company for the government, AI harvesting genetic information, Project Midas, a covert messaging service for government agents, a decoy website, and a fake woman behind it all. I can hear the feds at my door already. So without further ado, welcome to 4.com. To understand everything, we're going to need to run it back. So here's some brief context. In 1996, a website was launched named 4.com, which is a support site for a company named 4net. A snippet from a BBS board at the time tells us that 4net is an internet service provider for the eastern Massachusetts region, and it details some of its services. Over the next 12 years, little would change until the year 2008, when 4.com strangely began redirecting to a website named Cooks.com, also operated by the same company. Then nothing would change again until 2020, when 4.com became what it looks like today. And it's around this time in early 2020-ish that 4.com began to become a popular topic in niche circles of the internet. The weirdness begins when we look into the woman who supposedly owns 4.com. The address for the 4net business is a rundown Massachusetts crack shack by the water that's literally falling apart. And yet somehow, according to everywhere online, it's the business headquarters and has positive reviews as of 2019. The woman, Christine Loganok, who owns 4.com and the shack, has just enough info to seem real, but not enough once you start digging. There are no pictures or social media accounts, except for a never-used LinkedIn with 1 follower and 4net listed as her place of employment. In fact, the only real information that we've acquired about Kristen is that in spite of only working at this one failed internet company, she has somehow acquired millions of dollars worth of real estate, literally out of nowhere. And even stranger, each property seems to be untouched, and get this, are all out of Google Street View, except for our good old crack shack. All of this makes me think that she reeks of government asset, so for the sake of the argument, let's assume she is. On the outside, 4.com appears to be a regular website, but internally has proven to be a variable Fort Knox, with many of the internet's finest attempting to crack its code, pun intended, via both legal and less legal means. But despite years worth of attempts, it has not budged. So curious investigators began to sift through what they could access and notice some suspicious connections in the website's code. What they found is that 4.com has a large number of other URLs that redirect to 2 websites 4.com operates, named Cooks.com and Talk Food. And this is where the government connection is going to come into play. At face value, these both look like food websites, but the deeper you dive, the stranger things become. Firstly, both websites are incredibly vacant. There is almost nobody around. In fact, almost all of the content is over a decade old, and the moderators haven't been on since the 2010s. As I began looking further into these posts, something just didn't feel right, and eventually it hit me. They don't even sound like humans. So I ran some of these posts through an AI checker, and lo and behold, it came back positive, meaning that many of these posts were likely written by an AI model rather than a human. This furthered my curiosity, and so I decided to do some digging online, and before I did this, I had no idea this was actually a thing, but apparently the government has been doing this since the internet began. They create bland-looking websites about everyday topics that also have private messaging systems. Then, they will have government agents create accounts in order to chat with handlers across the globe using these private messaging systems on these fake websites. We can verify this is true because the feds actually got blasted for this a few years ago when foreign governments caught them using a fake music site to chat with undercover agents. And considering the complete dearth of moderation and how inactive the website is, this theory is starting to look pretty plausible. What's even more convincing is that a Reddit user, a little while back, when researching this mystery, just decided to put the question forward on the Talk Food website, basically asking what this was all about. And unsurprisingly, there was no written reply, but we definitely got a pretty clear message when a few days later, the thread was removed, which begged a few questions. If this website has nothing to hide, why not respond? And at the very least, why delete the post? Especially considering how dead the site is, I would think any businessman would want the free traction, but apparently not Christine. Unless, of course, what you're doing is clandestine and you don't want to draw any eyes. And this becomes more likely when you include what's hidden in the website's HTML, that being a large number of related links. Each of these links has a different name, but all redirect back to Cooks.com and Talk Food, meaning it's even more likely to be a covert operations site. For instance, if an agent is in the field in a foreign country or undercover here in the States, it's going to be very suspicious for anyone watching them if they go to this one website every day. But if you're looking at someone's internet history from the broader view, and there's dozens, maybe even hundreds of different websites, no one's going to think twice to check them. Additionally, just perusing through the Talk Food and Cooks.com sites, you can tell that something is clearly off. The people, if you can even call them that, are facades. Most don't even have profile pictures, and the ones that do all repeat each other. And the way people speak to one another on the platform is incredibly inhuman, often responding years, or in some cases over a decade shade later to people's posts, not to mention the bios, which are almost comically poorly written. With my curiosity thoroughly piqued, I obviously had to go check things out for us on a deeper level, so I opened an account and after a bit got my confirmation email, and for the first couple days everything was totally dandy, but after about 3 days my account was deleted, stating I had the wrong password, in spite of, my computer having it automatically saved and it was working just a few hours earlier. But all in all, the strangest things you will find here on this website is the lack of life. The highest ranking accounts on the website haven't been online since What Does the Fox Say was the #1 song globally.
What does the fox say?
And the best way to describe the feeling you get from these two sites is like exploring a ghost town, except wherever you walk, you get the sneaking suspicion you aren't quite alone. And the previous Reddit user proved this to us when his post got deleted despite everyone on this platform being inactive. So clearly, on some level, someone, possibly Kristen, is still watching what's going on here. Obviously then, until we crack 4.com, we can't say for certain if this is a government operation, but based on all the evidence we do have, I'd say it's pretty evident. At this point, we've brought both Kristen and 4.com into suspicion, but there's something I still haven't told you that brings all of this together and takes this mystery into the stratosphere. And what's best is that it's hidden right before our eyes in plain sight on the front page of 4.com. With a simple click of the version history at the bottom of the screen, one can open up a dialog panel, which lists some of the covert operations running behind the site's walls. The strangest being Midas, Midas API, and DNA Chain. Now, I'm no software engineer, but I know a suspicious program name when I see it. Midas, the legendary king cursed with the golden touch, is also a codename for several bizarre applications. The strangest of which is an artificial intelligence system designed to utilize social media in order to pre-diagnose users with mental illnesses, or, depending on your perspective, cause it. So without any digging, we now know that there is suspicious things going on behind 4.com's walls, because here right before us is an intelligence system operating covertly, dredging the internet for people it deems likely to be disturbed. Obviously, this is now extremely odd, but I think the final listing, DNA Chain, gives us some more context about this entire site. If we take a step back and just look at the site itself, some really eerie things begin to present themselves. The name of the website, 4, correlates to the number of genetic base pair letters in human DNA, those being A, T, G, and C, which are the literal building blocks of humanity. And the chain surrounding the website's title also matches up with this idea, displaying simply a chain. This makes everything about as clear as mud, but we know two things now. 4.com is likely involved with some sort of covert government operations and communications, artificial intelligence, and some kind of genetic research. And at this point, the evidence is mounting and things are sincerely getting weird. So before I continue into my crescendo, I want to take a moment and say that no, for you in the comments, this is not an ARG. The first ARG, or alternate reality game, came out in 2002, and as we know already, this website came online 6 years before that in 1996. Additionally, we do know that this site is connected to many real-world phenomena and has mounting evidence of government involvement. So no, I repeat, this is not an ARG. With this in mind, I circled back to Christine, who I think holds more secrets than we realize, and specifically, I think those secrets are hidden in her beach shack. Viewing the property data over the past 2.5 decades, we learned some pretty interesting little factoids. Over the past several years, there have been some rather expensive improvements and additions made to this property, amounting to a staggering $112,000 in total value. Now, one might expect, knowing this, that there is some evident improvements to this home, and I don't know, at least the ceiling isn't falling in, but according to every picture, this house is one wolf's puff from collapsing. So engaging in some internet sleuthing, I uncovered the last sale date for this property occurred in 1999, about 3 years after 4.com was launched, and according to Google, it's been the headquarters since then. However, since we know it's abandoned, this simply isn't possible, which makes me wonder why there's a 5-star review for quality of service, but that's besides the point. Knowing that this place is abandoned, I was left with 3 questions that the internet's limitations simply could not answer. 1, is the shack even real? 2, are they just old photos and this place is totally remodeled? And 3, is there anything suspicious going on there? So for the first time ever, living in Massachusetts was actually beneficial. The shack is only an hour and a half away from my home, and I simply couldn't resist. So after grabbing a friend to avoid federal ditification and escaping Boston traffic, we eventually arrived, and boy did it not disappoint. I haven't made an Urbex video in forever, so this was actually a blast as a side note. At first sight, the shack appears to be untouched, with trees and plants that have clearly been left to grow. But despite a tree in the sidewalk and overgrowth everywhere, there does seem to be a rather odd path to the door. It's not defined, and it clearly hasn't been used in a while, but it's enough to make me think some people are going in and out frequently enough to prevent anything from overgrowing in that general area. Getting a little closer, we noticed that some of the windows don't have blinds, so we decided to peep through the windows. And after my initial gag reflex subsided, I was struck by the sheer amount of garbage piled up feet above the counters and the strange paraphernalia everywhere. I mean, this was genuinely impressive amounts of garbage and grime that takes years to acquire, meaning that the 2019 review for excellent service is bogus. So after searching for a while and peeping through some less than savory places, my eye caught a little something glinting in the camera. What I found is something that is so wrong and out of place, it is utterly bizarre. But before I spoil it, pause here to see if you can spot what's wrong for yourself. Do you see it there on the far left of the screen? The tiny green light just chilling there almost out of view? Comment below if you got it right. That little green light means that there's power flowing into this home. And as we all know, it's common practice in America, and specifically in Massachusetts, to shut off someone's electricity after just a few months without paying. And since this house has been abandoned for possibly over 2 decades, there's absolutely no reason the power should still be on. Now that is unless, of course, something else is happening. Obviously, this entire house has absolutely fallen into ruin, and it's a shame that it's been allowed to get to this point. However, if you recall the property records from earlier, we know that according to the government, there's been $112,000 worth of improvements and additions on this property since 1999. And since this is a 1-story, 600 square foot house where you can see everything you need to see from one window, there's really only one option now to where these improvements can be: beneath our feet. And now things finally begin to make a little bit more sense. These servers handling Project Midas and the government data have to be somewhere, both secure and hidden. And what better place than an unregistered basement beneath a crack shack in the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts. And the single light that's on in here, at first sight, I thought it was a microwave, but after passing the photo around, that idea was expelled because there's already one right in front of me. So after getting second thoughts, the consensus I came to is that it's either an air conditioner or an air purifier. So who or what are we purifying the air for in the abandoned shack? People, computer servers, or both? So knowing this abandoned house has power, air purifiers, and probably secret basement, I'm as certain as I can be without the password to this website that we are looking at some deep doo-doo. And so during the walk home, I just got to thinking, how does this all connect? A government website designed for communication between agents and their handlers. That's simultaneously the home base for some sort of data scraping artificial intelligence designed to detect mental illness, and something involved in tracking and collecting human DNA. We know to a high degree of certainty that all of these are occurring and that they're probably happening beneath the floors of the crack shack. So while I was walking, the only thing that I could help but think about is that what if the Talk Food and Cooks.com, the Project Midas and DNA chain aren't 2 or 3 separate programs, but are one in the same? I don't know what on earth could possibly be the point of these programs, and until some of our more technically inclined internet sleuths can acquire more information, we probably won't know for certain. But if there's one thing I do know with absolute positivity, it's that something is happening out of that shack, and that 4.com, although a seemingly simple website blocked by a username and password, is anything but mundane. Now the feds have been at my door for about 20 minutes, so it's probably best I go let them in. Whoa, before you go, wait a second, I gotta tell you what just happened. When editing this video, I tried to go to 4.com to get clips, but it wouldn't work, so I thought the website had gone down, and even after trying my phone, I couldn't get on. Later that day, I was at a place with public Wi-Fi, and I was curious, so I tried it again, and it worked, which means the website wasn't down. So when I came home, I tried getting on the website again, and it turns out they banned my router access to their website. Any device that uses my home Wi-Fi can no longer connect to 4.com or Talk Food. You guys, this is getting so weird, because this is only a couple of days after we went and visited the crack shack, and after visiting the crack shack, my account gets banned, and they say that I never set up an account with my email, despite having a confirmation email from their website that I did. I don't really know what's going on anymore, but I'm positive this is the government at this point. It still works with cellular data though for now, so that's a big bonus. You guys, this is getting so weird, so please let me know what you think in the comments below. And now we're gonna go back to the outro. So until next time, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed, and I cannot wait to see y'all in the next one. Quickly though, before we leave, I just want to give a quick shout out to all the people who were critical in uncovering so much of the information I used in this video. Thank you so much, and I really hope we uncover some cool stuff here, because this is insane.